Then
Good
you know
morning,
what time it
guys.
is.
Huh?
I said, then you know what time it is. It's time for another
Yeah,
live stream.
yeah, exactly. I almost forgot this week what time our live stream was. I was like gonna
Oof.
write in a post that it was at 10 a.m. and I was like, oh no, that's
That
our
was just wishful
Vader.
thinking that we might sleep in one Saturday ever, and but
Nah,
we haven't in
I
like
love waking
I
up for
actually
these, man. I think
I
I
know.
think a lot of people do. But yes, I know. It's just it probably was wishful thinking because of all the traveling and everything.
Even when I
But
have days to sleep in though, I don't. I can't. I'm up
I
at like
know it's
six
tough.
anyways. It doesn't matter.
My girlfriend's
You-
like, how do you not like I don't sleep. I go to sleep at like 2 a.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. She's like, when do you actually sleep? I'm like, I don't know. I just nap, I think. I'm a napper.
Napping's
uh,
good though. What's up,
Good
Randall
morning,
and
guys.
Bryce?
Good morning, Bryce. Good morning, Randall. Randall, too. We have two Randalls in the group. One mentor, one student. It's pretty awesome. And
mhm.
now we also have two J's. I want to just
Yeah,
give a
that
big
is
shout
interesting
out and
too.
congratulations to everybody who's joining the Web Dev Incubator. We had two signups this week, Anthony and Jay. So welcome everybody to the group. I
Morning,
think you
Chris.
guys are, so I think Anthony's already been in a meeting and Jay is going to be here today. So you guys will see the power of mentoring. It's pretty amazing.
hmm This
Good
will
morning
likely
to you,
change
Jay.
your life. You look back on this moment and be like, that was
Yeah.
the moment I
Like,
truly became a developer.
yeah.
You know what? You know what's
hmm
funny? I was thinking about this the other day too, because like when we started, and like I really there was a moment, and it wasn't really because of the boot camp. It was because of us working together on Saturdays when I really realized that I was like, oh shit, like I am a developer. This is awesome,
Yeah.
and like and
Yeah,
it can happen so much faster than the way these other programs do it. I think it's just
totally.
it's a
Good
mess.
morning, Anthony. Good morning, Eric.
Yeah. Plus, we have an incredible group in the Web Dev Incubator, quite a supportive
I see when
community.
you're dead. Yeah.
Yes, Bryce, I will get plenty of sleep when I am dead. And that's basically the developer's life. You'll get sleep when you're dead. Exactly.
Mhm.
Stay up late hours, work late hours, but
Well,
it's
there's
all
so much fun
worth it.
stuff to make.
I know, exactly. I mean, honestly, there's more ideas in my brain than I could possibly make in like a lifetime as a
Dude,
developer.
that's the problem, isn't it? And it feels like you just never have like because we also have lives and stuff. It's just like you never have enough time to like
Yeah.
just do it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Interestingly enough, I shared with you guys this week this quote from Leo Tolstoy. Very, very
mm,
interesting because as developers,
Pretty smart guy
it's
too.
it's very easy to kind of get ahead of yourself. And I find myself all the time getting frustrated that it takes so long to learn the things that I want to learn, to complete the projects that I want to learn. And
mhm.
I saw this quote and it was pretty inspirational. I figured I should share with everybody here. Leo Tolstoy says, the two best warriors are patience and time. And
Mm,
that's an interesting one because if you can harness the power of patience and let time work in your favor, not give up being a developer, not burn out being a developer, and just stick with it in the long term, be patient, eventually the stuff you can do is incredible.
It
yeah,
really is.
it's pretty cool. Good morning, Jay. Yeah, so I agree, man. That's one of the things that benefits you a lot from becoming a developer is just having patience with it because I think there's so much out there where people are saying become a developer in 5 minutes. I was actually watching a
Dude,
YouTube video the other day,
it's
which was
so
kind of
bad.
funny. It was like a fitness influencer, and he was talking about like he bought like all the fitness scams on the internet, and one of them was called like 6 second abs, and and he bought it, and it's like, and he's like, oh, it's not actually 6 second abs, it's 6 second workouts, and he's like, I love a scam within a scam. It's the best. But yeah, I mean that's the truth, right? There's so many people out there saying, "Oh, become a developer in this short amount of time." And the truth is like, sure, you can learn a little bit, but you're going to become really talented if you stick with it for a long time and have patience with it.
Well,
Talking
that's it.
about scam, I
Yeah.
want because that's actually on the topic of what we're talking about today. I think one of the
Ah.
biggest scams perpetrated in the development industry is that you have to learn HTML first, and then you have
Mm.
to learn CSS. And then, if you can, if HTML and CSS wasn't too much, then you can tackle the giant mountain of JavaScript. And after
Yeah.
years of struggling through all tutorials and code alongs and everything, if you're worthy, if you're deemed worthy enough to be a true developer, you can
Yeah.
actually touch a framework.
You know what
Yeah.
though? I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I wanted to mention that like this is something that has always just got me so angry, especially in like universities, but you see it in boot camps, you see it everywhere, is a lot of times the people instructing you, they act like they're on this like pedestal way above, and that
Mm,
maybe if you're lucky. But the reality is like if they can do it, you can do it. If
yeah.
anybody else can do it, you can do it. It just takes time, dedication, and having ideally good direction and good mentors to work with. That's all it takes, dude. And
Yeah.
like I hate when people do that. They act like, oh no, you need the special gift to do this. It's like, no, you don't. You just need to
But
put
where
effort
does
in.
one
Yeah.
find good mentors?
I
Oh,
know,
I don't
right?
know.
Isn't there this thing called Web Dev Incubator?
There
No, that's
is.
a boot camp, right?
No, it's not a boot camp.
Not a
Not a
boot
boot
camp.
camp. Very far from it. No, I mean, what you're saying is really true. And I think about it this way, right? It's like, yes, it's important to understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to some degree, but it's like when you learn to drive a car, right? They don't teach you car mechanics. They don't teach you like,
Internal
oh,
combustion.
yeah, like you don't need to learn that to press a gas pedal, right? But you do need to understand how to use a modern car, right? So I think it's sort of the same thing. Like, you don't need to necessarily learn every single piece of how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript works to be able to use a JavaScript framework and use it well. And ultimately, if your idea is to get a job, like you're going to learn a lot more by dipping your feet into Next.js and learning that quickly than if you just sit in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript vanilla forever because nobody's hiring for that anymore.
No, they were hiring for that back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, not anymore. And the other thing too, I think about this is like I know frameworks can be overwhelming to people because there's so many. But the
Yeah.
trick is picking the right ones. And I think that's what we're focusing on is cutting edge. It's stuff that is brand new, but it's also stuff that is widely used. I mean, everyone uses it. And so it will land you a job. And it'll also, even if you don't want to work for somebody, if you want to work for yourself, it makes you incredibly fast. I mean, like we talk about this all the time, like the speed at which, and I know everybody in our group was talking about this, the speed at which you can put a website together, dude, using like Next.js, Tailwind, Firebase, React, is just leaps and bounds ahead of what you can do. If I did the same thing in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it would take me at least 3 times as long.
Yeah. So my question
So
is this to you guys before you go, Randall. My question is this is why do you think people should learn Next.js and React and not Vue or Angular or any of these other ones? Randall,
I'm not
over
going to
to you,
answer that
Randall.
question, but I'm going to answer a
I'm
similar
gonna say my
question.
own thing, totally separate.
Sweet. All right, Donald Trump.
Because I don't have a great answer for that one. So if you have a better answer, go for it. I'll say
I'll
my
answer it
stuff
after you.
later.
Go ahead. Do your thing though. You
Okay.
already interrupted.
Go
Well,
ahead,
anyways,
Randall.
so here's the thing. I think frameworks are confusing. I would guarantee, like, post down in the comments. Let us know if you understand what a framework is. Because
Mm,
guaranteed, I did not for a long time, pretty much all the way through the boot camp that I did. I had no idea what a framework was. We were using React, maybe, but I had no idea what a framework was. And really, the simple way of understanding it is a framework is modern JavaScript. And
Yeah.
if you're
yeah,
using JavaScript, like if you're learning JavaScript, that's JavaScript Classic. That's the past. Like you
yeah.
really don't
Like
use that stuff
NES.
to make websites, apps, anything. So anytime you hear framework, you should just think modern JavaScript. And that's the simplest way to do it.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that a
I
lot.
want to, I want
Now
to,
on to your answer.
I'll answer your question though. Why Next.js,
yeah.
React, and stuff. I would answer it this way. I would say that for several reasons. One, I think that they're very well supported, widely used. They have
Mhm.
great community support. So there's incredible libraries available. I think they take a lot of the BS out of it. I also think that when you're talking about web development, nowadays you can do everything with them. Like we were just mentioning to our group during our Wednesday meeting about, capacitor. Now
Mhm.
using Next.js and React, you can easily take a web app and make it an Android or an iOS app or both, depending on what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Which is
So
pretty
like,
sick.
yeah, they just because they're so widely supported and used, new stuff just keeps coming out that makes it easier and easier to do what you want to do. And on the other side of that too is because they're JavaScript frameworks, if you're working on the web, which everybody does now because there is no real software anymore, it's all web-based software,
Yeah.
right? If you're working on the web, you're going to need JavaScript. So like, yes, like Python, Django, they're awesome too. I enjoy them, but you still need vanilla JavaScript when you're working with that or jQuery because
Hmm.
you need that interaction and that doesn't
Yeah.
exist in Python by itself. So these just make way more sense, I think, overall. And I think it makes way more sense to use them moving forward because it makes you faster, better, and able to do the job right and get hired.
Yeah, totally.
I
Go
want to
ahead,
go
Brian.
out on a limb. I'm going to guess that most of the people watching this live stream right now have heard of something called Facebook. I'm just I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to make a big guess. But Facebook is the reason why React exists. So like Facebook created this because it works, because it's very good, because it can support that enormous infrastructure. And you know, the top companies are using this technology and the top companies are hiring for this technology. So then nobody, if you go look at job listings, nobody's asking for someone who knows vanilla JavaScript, aka JavaScript Classic, because that's gone. You know, everybody wants someone who knows React or Next or
Yeah.
Angular, Vue, anything.
Should we explain what a framework is for everybody?
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Uh,
Because I think Anthony said that too a little bit, and he wants to understand a little bit of like what it is in depth. So think about it
well,
this way.
wait.
That,
Start, should we just start with React? I would start with React though. Like, with what
yeah,
happened? Yeah, with Facebook.
yeah. So I mean, to explain it a little bit is on old like classic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, there's this thing called the DOM, which is the document object model. And every time that a page loads, you have to get more information from a server and the DOM reloads. And so this causes a lot of it causes websites to be very slow on any update to anything. So user presses a button, whole web page has to reload, right? It's not a great user experience. So Facebook created React to deal with that because it's a reactive application where the whole DOM doesn't have to reload. It keeps a copy of the DOM and has a virtual DOM and then compares that to the actual DOM and only updates a part of the DOM that changes. And so now we have these modern frameworks that can scale. You can build components. So you're not duplicating your code, which is like a design pattern is dry, don't repeat yourself, right? So you can build components, use them multiple times throughout your application, reuse them for different applications. Like you can build a card and inject different data into that card. And so that's
Where
why,
might somebody give some examples of that? Like, where might somebody see that on Airbnb or on
yeah,
Craigslist or something like that? Like,
yeah.
just help
And
on people
Oh,
understand what a component is and where they
yes,
would find it there.
you want to
doesn't
go, Danny?
Airbnb
Go
still have
ahead.
those nice filter buttons right at the top that they used to
Hmm.
have? Yeah, I haven't been on Airbnb in a while.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Airbnb has those nice filter buttons all at the top. Those would be a component, right?
yeah.
Something like that
And
would be a component.
and like
All the,
each house would be a component, right? There's
yeah,
a card that shows a picture, has like a title, has some description, the price, maybe a rating. So all of those things are just one component that's written once. It's like one
yeah,
little file of code, and then the data is pulled from a database and just injected into that component, into that little file of code for each one of those. And we did that this week inside of the Web Dev Incubator. We showed basically how to take an array of data and turn that into multiple cards, right? And it becomes super powerful at scale because you start to think about how much data there is on a website like Airbnb or Facebook. I mean, we don't realize this because we probably look at Airbnb and we're like, ah, there's 20 homes there, but that's 20 homes in the one particular area that you're looking at. Airbnb serves the entire world. So think about that database, right? Of how many homes there are, all the reviews for those homes. Like that's a lot of information that's being
that's
passed around
insane,
the
dude.
internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to do that as quickly as you want to click Airbnb, I mean, people don't have patience to watch a page reload every time they click something, right? And to get data like that. So they needed a better way to do this. And so they built React. And basically what React is to sort of give it like a full in-depth um, way of understanding is React is basically like you take a folder, which is where you're building your application, and you install packages. Packages are just code that somebody else wrote before you, right? As developers, your job is really to learn how to use packages efficiently because you don't need to write complex code from scratch, right? You want to understand it, and that's why it's important to to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript so that you can read some of this stuff, but you're not going to build it from that, right? It's already built up. And so basically, React is a framework that allows you to use other people's code that they've already written to do these things for you, right? So you don't all these components that you're writing get compiled back down into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because ultimately that's what a browser uses. But somebody else wrote all that code for you. Facebook did that job. They paid,
Um, yeah.
really talented developers to build that. And so we basically install that into a folder when we start the app, and then we build in certain patterns that use that to build much more complex apps out of that.
Well, I wanted to address too, because Randall said he gets, a student Randall says he gets frameworks and libraries confused all the time. And I wonder, because
Yeah.
they are very similar. In some
Yeah.
sense, they are functionally the same. Like you have to think of it like frameworks and libraries are, I always think of them as they're just tools to do the job easier because they're addressing issues that other developers have run into over and over again. For instance, page load time. When you're dealing with these huge websites like Airbnb, when you're getting tons of users, page load time can be very slow. So they needed a way to make this a lot faster, hence the virtual DOM, creating all this stuff. And now everybody can use it and everybody benefits from it. And I think, you could learn other ones, but I think React is, I think, the most dominant web framework out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
I mean,
positive it is. Yeah,
technically speaking, I believe React is a library
it is
and
a library. Yes,
Next.js is a
a
framework. And the
framework.
difference is really very minor. The difference is really that Next.js is a full front end, back end. You can write literally like the front end of an application and the back end logic, all the functions, everything in that framework. Whereas React is really just a front end library and it has to be
Yeah.
connected to like a database and you need back end logic built separately. Um,
Yeah,
so
framework lets you do everything. Like Django is a
yeah,
web framework because it allows you to use Python to do
everything.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But I mean,
so,
they are functionally still very similar.
yeah. And I think that brings up a good point is that because I asked this question and I think you answered it, Danny, but I wanted to answer it too is like, why Next.js and React, right? If we go out there and we look at, I think React was designed, if I'm not incorrect, which I might be, is in 2014, I think was when
They
Facebook.
released it in 2015, so they probably
Okay.
designed it ahead of time. Yeah, they released it, to the public.
So 2015 was when it started, and it's basically taken over all modern web applications. Now, here's the thing, right? Next is actually just React, right? At its core, Next.js is just React. It just added additional functionality to it, which makes it way better. Okay, so of all the companies that I've worked for as a developer, 99% of them use Next.js, right? And like maybe 1% of them uses React, but they're all using this. I mean, you can look at, go on LinkedIn, go on Indeed, and look at what they're hiring for. All of these jobs that people are being hired for, you need to know at least one modern JavaScript framework. Most of them want Next.js, React, Vue, or Angular. Okay. And Vue and Angular are like fringe, right? They're like on the side. There are some companies that use them, but they're phasing it out because Next and React are so much more powerful and better in so many ways.
Side note too, though, if you know React and Next, you can learn those other ones fairly easy too, though, because I've
Yes.
used Angular before. They have a very similar style. They're a little bit different
Yeah.
syntax, but similar. But I wanted to point out too, one of the values of using these is imagine, because I think everybody in here who's used HTML, CSS, JavaScript, imagine making a website. Imagine trying to you want to interact, make some interaction, you want to use some data. So you're using JavaScript to connect to HTML. You're connecting to these divs or to these, elements. You're connecting to, using class ID, all this. When you're using frameworks like React and Next, you're doing it all in the same file.
Hmm.
So you're not doing all of this get element by ID stuff, all this crap. You get rid of all of that because it's
Yeah.
directly right there, and then it's compiled later into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript correctly. And it's just so much
Done for
faster
you.
and intuitive. Because
Yeah.
that's the other problem. I think we forget that when you're working in the old style, you're going through 10 different files, switching around, jumping around. It gets really confusing. Whereas this, you write a component. Oh, I need to change all my buttons. I go to one file, adjust the style on that, and boom, all my buttons are changed.
Yep.
It's like just
Yeah, it's
incredible.
amazing. I mean, and that's that's something that I think people don't realize until they actually get into using a JavaScript framework like React or Next, is that all that stuff is right there. So you like, I see the button, I see the style that the button has, and I see what the button does all in the same exact place. It's not even just like the same file all over the place. It's literally like the HTML tag has the style that I can read clearly. It's not just a class name that I have to reference a CSS style sheet. It's written right there in Tailwind. And then it also has, my on click or whatever it is, that the functionality is built in right there as well. So it's a lot easier to see how all these flow together.
I
Um,
wanted to answer Bryce's
yeah,
question real quick because I think
yep,
that's an important one. Because he said, is Next.js the next version of Node.js or just two different things? They are two different things. As we said, Next.js is a
yeah,
React framework that lets you do both it lets you do everything within the web development sort of universe, right? With React. And it's built from React. Node.js is actually like a JavaScript. It's like a runtime environment because JavaScript was originally made for really interactivity on the web, and Node.js made JavaScript really, in a sense, it pulled JavaScript from that niche use and made it a full language. So now you can do server-side stuff. You can write, software. You can do all kinds of things now. And this is why we use NPM, right? That Node package manager, because we're using Node when we're using these frameworks and these libraries.
yeah. Basically, Node is just JavaScript, but not on a browser. It's on a server.
Yeah,
And it is different, just so you guys know. So, like, when you're using JavaScript on a browser, there are browser APIs and browser methods that you can use directly, to access things in the browser that you can't use in Node, right? Because, um, there's interactivity that happens on a browser that can't happen on a server. So, um, yeah, but they are very different. Go ahead, Randall.
I wanted to touch on what you guys were mentioning about why to learn React as opposed to Angular and Vue. So
Mm.
anybody who's watching, you can look up state of JavaScript or state of JS. It's a survey that they do every year that takes a look at how JavaScript is progressing. And so if you take a look at there on the front end frameworks, the number of developers who who have used React is about 84% versus Vue about 50% and Angular about 48%. And then in terms of sentiment or how much people like it, React is about 70%, Vue is 60%, and Angular is 30%. So it's not only the most widely used, but it's also the most enjoyed framework out there.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this too because this is something pretty cool. So Next.js is made by a company called Vercel. You can look up their website. It's just nextjs.org. And if you go to their website, they have a page called nextjs.org/showcase, and it showcases all of the websites on the internet that are using Next.js. Okay. You may have
it's
heard of some
insane.
of these: Sonos, Nike, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, Spotify, NerdWallet, Netflix Jobs, Zapier, Solana, Plex, Wegmans, Wayfair, Under Armour. These are massive
Small
companies.
companies, right?
Yeah. Like this is no joke. The list just keeps going on. The Washington Post, LG, TikTok, Leonardo AI, Twitch, Hulu, Notion, Target, HBO Max, Realtor, AT&T. These are the companies that I think you guys want to be working for, right? So you have to understand the technologies that they're using if you want to get hired by one of these companies, right? And so what's the point of learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for years on end if at the end of the day, these companies aren't hiring for that, right? I'll keep going.
You could
Hilton, United Airlines, TED, Auth0. Like it's ridiculous if you look at these, how many companies are already using Next.js as a full stack framework, right?
I mean, if you really look at it too, it's like everyone, NVIDIA, you got,
It's
Yeah,
crazy. Like
Porsche,
you,
TED,
Ferrari, all of them. Yeah.
it's
yeah,
everything. They just keeps going. You can just keep loading this
you
forever.
just load it forever. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
pretty crazy. So yeah, so that's a pretty good reason I
Oh,
think to learn that just a
that's
little.
that's the other thing I wanted to mention too was I've always why I really like Next and have enjoyed working with it is also because it is so widely used. It is incredibly easy to connect it to these cloud backend services like Firebase
Mhm.
or Vercel has their own that you can connect to host, to do a database and all. And the thing I love
Yeah.
about that too is as an individual developer, like a freelancer and stuff, like I don't have time and money to maintain a server and stuff. That's old school. It costs a fortune.
Mhm.
And if anything takes off, you'll never be able to scale. It's just impossible. We have
Yeah.
all these awesome cloud solutions, and because this stuff is so widely used, it is incredibly easy to connect. Super
Yeah.
easy to
You
connect them and
you
then make
reminded me
everything
of
better.
a post I read once, and it was I don't remember. It was probably a month or so ago where somebody was, it might have even been in the group where somebody in here was like, "Hey, I'm just getting into web development. I'm gonna build my own server." And I was like, "No, don't do that. Please don't." They're like,
I
"What
remember
what machine should I buy to build my own server? I'm thinking about becoming a web developer. How should I host it? Like, how much RAM do I need?" And I was like, "No." Like
yeah, don't
you
do
can
that.
just like have a service do that for you, and it's like free, and you don't even have like free till you scale to hundreds of thousands of users. Like
Yeah.
there's no point in giving yourself that headache. And ultimately it's, nobody's gonna hire you because you built a server in your room,
I was
right?
thinking about that the other day too, right? That like it's free to so many, up to such a seemingly
It's
high number
ridiculous.
because it
Yeah.
costs them so little
Yeah.
to serve your site.
Well,
They just,
exactly. And at the scale that they're maintaining these data centers, like your site that's getting 25 users a day is nothing,
that's
right?
the other thing though too about it is like, say your site's getting 25 users a day and say something happens and you get struck by lightning lucky and all of a sudden that goes from 25 to 100,000. They auto scale. You don't have to do anything. They handle
Exactly.
it
Yep.
and they have the resources to handle it. That's their business model, right? Like I
Yeah.
mean, it's awesome. So yeah, I think that is like such a big one. Like, trying to build your own server like is unless you're doing very weird niche stuff, I guess, like project zone or something, that's fine. But like, yeah, if you're gonna do web development, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So
Go
I
ahead,
got a
Rolando.
question now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you guys have opened my mind. I'm sold. I'm done with this whole slow progress of HTML, CSS, and then the mountain of JavaScript for the rest of my life and never getting around to frameworks. How do I get started?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's the episode today. Thanks for joining
See you
us.
later.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
I think one of the best things you can do, like, I'll say this is I don't want to deceive people. There's tons of free information out there, right? You can go out there and you can go on YouTube and look up JavaScript frameworks. And I mean, Chris mentioned this. One of our students mentioned this week in the web dev incubator is he noticed that actually out there's not that many beginner Next.js videos. And the reason why is that it's so new, right? This technology has only been around for a few years, and they're developing it quickly. So it can be a little bit hard, but a lot of the information is free out there. Number one is you can always look at the documentation. But number two, and I think this is what you're going for, is that the ideal way to do this is to have a mentor, somebody who can show you how to actually like learn this stuff and what to learn first, because these frameworks are admittedly fairly complex to learn in the beginning, and it's a new language. Like you're not going to be comfortable seeing this yet, right? You may even if you know JavaScript very well, if you just try to dive into Next.js, it's going to look like gibberish to you.
So where does
yeah.
one find a mentor?
I would also add too, the other thing about having those mentors too is that like I remember when we were in our boot camp and like they introduced us to React or they introduced to Django, they didn't explain anything. So it was super confusing. The file structure, everything made no sense. But once
Yeah.
you understand it, it's really intuitive and easy to understand, especially Next.js. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the value of having people. But what I would say is we do think you guys should get to these things as fast as possible because that's what you're going to be using. And my thinking, if I could go back and do this again, I would learn HTML and CSS are very straightforward. I would learn them just enough to be able to read the code, work with them, do stuff, which shouldn't take that long. JavaScript, I would learn the very basics, just so I can read JavaScript, understand it, write functions, do basic like math functions, things like that, and then just move on. Because you're going to keep using this stuff as you go, keep developing those skills, and just get better and better at it
Yeah.
as you go.
I want to answer Jay's question here too.
I
So
just saw that
Jay,
too. Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
one.
Jay said, is Next.js and React like HTML, CSS, where you need other coding languages, or can you create and run a site just using Next.js or React? So, um, React and Next.js are at their core JavaScript. It also uses a language called JSX, which is I always forget the name of this. What is it, Danny?
It's
JavaScript,
it's JavaScript with XML. But
XML.
really,
Yeah,
yeah, all it really is it's JavaScript where you can also write HTML tags directly in it. That's all it
yeah.
really is. I mean,
It's
if you want to think of it that way.
ultimately like you can think about it like you're creating custom HTML tags. And the custom HTML tags are just a component that you can inject into pages and other components. So imagine like we were talking about before, where you want to build a card, you can write the card, and ultimately what you're writing in is all JavaScript, HTML. We totally sidestep like CSS for the most part by using Tailwind, because Tailwind is its own library that compiles into CSS, but it's basically like short code for CSS. It's pretty awesome. So you really don't need CSS that much. You need to understand it, like what you're gonna like what styles you want to put on there. But if you understand Tailwind, you don't really need to know CSS that much. So yeah, it's mostly JavaScript and HTML, and you don't need to know anything else. Like if you understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can start using React and Next.js right away, but you do need to understand how they work functionally. So like you need to go through the documentation, understand the patterns that you have to write in and how things operate. Like when somebody clicks a button and you want them to go to another page, how do you set that up? Right? It's just JavaScript, but there's a certain pattern to it because it's as if you're installing some software in your app that's doing the heavy lifting for you. So like you set up your file structure in a certain way, and then it knows like, okay, when somebody clicks this button, you want to go to a page that's like your services page. You have a folder called services, and inside that is a page.js, and it just takes them there because of the code that's already written that somebody wrote before you.
I would also
Hopefully.
say too, keep in mind that browsers work with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So all these things compile into that ultimately. They give you a tool to make development way easier. And then when you're done, it actually, compiles all that stuff as needed into those languages so the browser can interact with it correctly.
Yeah. I wanted to mention this because Bryce said this. He said, Next.js is still very confusing to me. JavaScript is not nearly as intimidating, but getting that exposure early is extremely helpful. Number one, like for anybody which I think most of you guys in here are in the web dev incubator already, and Jay, welcome. You can go inside the course curriculum and find our Wednesday coding sessions, and we explain like the folder structure and how a lot of the app itself functions, so you can see that stuff. But I did want to mention this because I do remember when I was in boot camp learning React, and there is like you are going to go through this phase when you're learning React or Next.js where it feels ridiculously overwhelming. And I can say that everybody who's been in our Wednesday coding sessions from the beginning also felt that. And I think
Oh yeah.
Randall, the student, would agree. Like one of the days that we did the coding session, we sort of had like uh, like everybody came to us afterwards and was like, that felt way over my head. Like I think I'm like drowning in this technology. The reality is this, that is going to happen. There's a threshold of understanding that you have to breach before you start getting it, right? And before that, you're going to be like, this is like way too much. I remember when we were in boot camp, even
Yeah.
mentor Randall was like, we just wrote like 1,000 lines of code to write a Hello World app. That seemed like not practical, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't in the beginning, but the reality is once you break that threshold and you start seeing the patterns over and over, you do the same thing over and over and over again, and then it unlocks the power of everything. And one of the things that you're going to see that it unlocks is the ability to use other people's code. Like right now, we built uh, probably 90% of an application in 4 hours as beginner developers, right? We built like this kittens app. I mean, literally, I think we've actually put in maybe 6 hours of development into that app, of like real development
I wouldn't
time.
even say that long because really
I
there's
don't
a lot
think
of
so either.
questions and answering and
Yeah,
stuff. So it's
exactly.
like really not even that long.
And the way that we're able to do that is we're sitting on the backs of giants. Like we're using Next.js, we're using Tailwind, we're using Daisy UI, which is a component UI component framework, or sorry, component library. So we're not building out like the nav bar and all this stuff. Like we're just basically drag and dropping a lot of this stuff and then styling it how we want to, changing it, adding things if we want here or there. But you
Well, I
can build
wanted to, yeah,
powerful
it's
apps in
like
no
that
time.
that guy said that you sent that video. I was like, the end user doesn't care what
Yes.
happens in the background. They care that things work. They care that it's easy to use, and they care that it functions as it's supposed to. That's all they care about at the end of the day.
Exactly.
They don't care how you made it. They don't care
Yeah.
what crazy logic you whatever. They don't that doesn't matter to them because to them all that's just sort of like it's like it's like your television when you're a little kid. It's like magic, right? Like all
Yeah.
that's kind of like they don't need to worry about it. They don't want to worry about it.
Yeah.
And that's fine, you
I
know?
mean, this is like we have kids and I talk to the kids a lot about um the devices they use, right? Because they don't realize that it's not just a glass window that they can see the rest of the world in. There's a lot
Mhm.
operating in there. Like there's actually like stuff behind that glass screen, right? And there's intention behind that screen too, because I think that's one of the most damaging things. And I won't get into like the political, conversation of it, but like I think there's a lot of damaging things of this generation where people don't realize like everything that you're consuming online, somebody had intention of what you're going to do and how you're going to see that. And that's developers and the people behind developers, right? So
And the way they develop it directs you in that
exactly,
way in line with their intentions. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah. Does anybody
Before
else? That
before we finish up, I mean, we asked many times, how do you find a mentor? And quite
Yeah,
honestly, we have probably one of the best mentoring programs available online. If you can find a better one, let us know and we'll, make ours even better. But for those of you who are tired of just kind of going around in circles on your own, it really makes a huge difference to have a team of dedicated developers on your side. And I know for myself, for Danny, for Russ, all of us doing this every week helped us all grow together. And you can
yeah,
see with just the growth that's happened over the past few months in the Web Dev Incubator, how much all of the students in there are growing, not only because we held them accountable to do work, but also because of the community that's in there as well. So if you're looking to take your development to the next level, Web Dev Incubator is the best mentoring program you will find online. And Danny has something to say.
I was gonna say, and we are definitely exiting beta soon. So this is
yeah,
like really it. If you guys want to get in at the price we're at now for beta, this is really it. So just keep that in mind. And yeah,
yeah, definitely. And just to give you guys a quick idea of like sort of where we're going with this program, because we've gotten a lot of amazing feedback, and thank you guys who are inside of here. I also like I just want to say something. I don't think you guys who are in the web dev incubator realize how meaningful it is to us because we started this group with like hopes and dreams of making this into something amazing, right? Because we saw what was failing in the market. We saw like boot camps weren't really serving people, and we had this intention, and we were like, maybe this will work. Like, hopefully, this will work. Maybe people, and it's amazing to see the progress that you guys have had. Number one, the community that we're building is like unbelievable. I
it is.
really couldn't ask for better people inside of this community. You guys are so committed and so dedicated. So I really want to thank you guys because you are the community. You are what make this amazing. And that helps us be motivated to continue building this and growing it more. And so I'll get to you, Danny, but
No, no, you're good.
I wanted to mention sort of
Morbid
like
thinking
where
here.
we're going with this because there's a few things that, number one is we're always open to your feedback and what you guys will think will help you more is what we want to build this into. We're not here to like become millionaires off of this. We just love development and we want to help you guys love development as well. So any feedback that you have, we're more than happy to take that on and build that into what you want. The direction that we're really headed with this is we see what people love. I know people love the mentoring. I know they love the community. And I think the other thing that people love is building projects. And that's what we really want to do with this, like moving forward, is help you guys build a ton of projects. So it's a mentoring program where you guys can get your questions answered, have the mentoring that you're already getting that you love. But also, we're really pushing for building these projects in Next.js and in React. And that's why we made this episode today, was because that is our goal, right? At the end of the day, you're going to get hired. You're going to be able to build the app that you want. You're going to be able to do whatever it is in development by building stuff, right? By actually putting your hands on the keyboard and typing out some code. And so our goal is to build this into something that we help you through the process of actually coding, because that's the number one thing that most boot camps fail on. The content is out there for free. You can get the information for free, but boot camps don't actually get you to code. They
Yeah.
have you copy and paste 90% of the code. They don't explain it. You don't have somebody who can answer the questions. And so that's what we're trying to build here.
Well, that's what I actually wanted to say was boot camps and education, they've been stuck in the Stone Age forever. They haven't changed that model, and that's what we're doing. We're changing the model and making something that actually works. And I've
Yeah.
been in education for a long time. I've seen it. It fails. I also wanted to quickly answer, CJ said, does the inquiry have a certain length of time? It's self-paced, but we really see realistically about like, I would say 10 months to a year to like
Yeah.
really, because we want you guys to be good developers. That's the goal. And the project focus is meant so that when you are ready, you have a ton of actual, real, awesome projects in your portfolio that you can then get hired because nobody cares if you did, all these like little tutorial apps and stuff that you see in HTML, CSS and stuff. That doesn't matter. They want to see that you can actually make stuff on your own and explain it. And that's the goal that we're trying to sort of
Yeah.
get everybody here doing so that they can actually get jobs or
Yeah.
go work on their own and do whatever they want.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think this is set in concrete, but the way that we're sort of seeing this go is when we come out of beta, which will be in the next week or 2 weeks at most, I think this is going to turn into like a high ticket offer, probably in the range of $5,000 for a year, and that'll get you a year of mentoring. It may or may not be somewhere in that range. We haven't fully decided on that yet. But I think a year is a very good estimation of time for you to build up a portfolio of projects to understand all these things. It is self-paced though, so some people go very slow, some people go very fast, right? And that's totally fine. We help everybody in between. If you want to take it one day at a time, that's fine. If you want to jump to Next.js the first day, that's cool too. We'll help you with whatever it is that wherever you are, and also whatever goals you have, right? We have some people in here who are like, I just want to learn this and become a developer in a year, 2 years, 3 years. We have some people who want to build an app. We have some people who want to become a developer tomorrow, right? And that's totally fine. We help everybody in between with any project that you want to do. If it's just for fun, if it's a hobby, if it's like, I want to build my app. I know Anthony's in here. He just joined this week and he wants to build an app. He already has people like using an app that he built in Wix, which is amazing. When he builds
It's
that thing
amazing.
in Next, he's going to
It's
have
gonna be
thousands
incredible.
of people. Like
Yeah.
he's going to be killing it. I already can tell, right? Um, so yeah, we're here to help everybody in between. But if you join now, it is, month to month. So if you want to join now, you can cancel at any time. Once we go into the full, it's going to be a year. So if you're sort of on the fence about it, now is literally the best time and only time to join
Yeah.
because you're going to get the best price you possibly could. And, I know Danny had a call with somebody like last week and they were how are you able to, I think it was Bryce actually. He's like, how are you able to sell this for so cheap? And it's because we're literally not making money. We're doing this because it's a passion of ours and we want to help people. And we want to scale this thing. So we do have to increase the price so that we can scale, we can spend more time on this, we can hire other people to actually build this thing into like the amazing community that it's going to be. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Cool. All
So
right.
with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in on Saturday. If you are interested in joining the Web Dev Incubator, there's two options. You can reach out to us directly on Facebook, just send us a message and say, hey, I'm interested, and we can set up an action call for you. Or if you just write in the comments of this video, Next.js, and we will reach out to you directly, set up an action call. And I think Randall always posts that in there as well. So Randall, you can post the link if they want to just sign up directly for the action call. We'll put the link in the description as well. You just click that link. The action call is a really simple call. It's about 15 minutes to a half hour. We just discuss your goals. We provide you some value, some guidance on what you want to do. And then we decide if the web dev incubator is right for you. We tell you any questions you want to know. We'll answer those for you. And if you're ready to sign up, you sign up. If not, that's fine. We're ready to take you guys on whenever you want to become a developer. So with
All
that,
right.
thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for all your comments. It's amazing to see how many people are in these calls now. And yeah, if you're inside the incubator, we'll see you in about 15, 20 minutes. The link will be inside the private Telegram group.
All
And
right.
with that, happy Saturday. We will see you. Have a good week. We'll see you bright and early next Saturday, as always.